Hey, I hope everybody's doing alright. I'm going to show you how to safely change a shock absorber at home for the least amount of price. So right here we have some spring compressors. I think you can get them like at Harbor Freight or something for probably 30 bucks or so. Or they rent them at AutoZone or O'Reilly's, Advance Auto, all the big box stores. So the object is to compress the spring to get this strut assembly out in the middle. Now, it's pushing up, and this spring is under some good tension. You cannot just release this top bolt. I mean, you can, but you could potentially get hurt. So if you don't compress this spring right here, this coil spring, and you release this bolt, this top hat assembly, which is solid metal and has a bearing in it, and it rotates, so when you're turning your steering wheel, it turns so the shock can turn. This whole assembly can come off and pop you in the face. The spring can go flying across the floor, could hit somebody. So you just don't want to do it. So in order to get that strut assembly out here, because it's, like I said, it's under high pressure gas, it's a piston, you have to put on these little shackles or coil spring binders. So let me get them on and show you guys. So you want to set the spring compression tools up on the shock right across from each other. I have these at the 3 and the 6 o'clock, I'm sorry, the 3 and the 9 o'clock positions. And then what you're going to do is rotate these hex heads here, these happen to be 15/16, until the spring tool compresses the spring. Once it compresses the spring, you'll see it'll come loose from this top hat, and then you can remove that center nut up here safely. I don't recommend using power tools on it, because you can bind up the threads. Always lubricate the threads before you use the tool. And I'm using a gear wrench to just go ahead and compress these. So I'm going to compress it and get them down so you can see what they look like. Alright, as you see, you basically just squeeze the coil together and bind it up. Now we'll remove that top nut and the top hat assembly. Alright, once you get the top nut off, you'll have your spring plate that comes off, and your top hat assembly with the bushing or bearing in it. Just make sure it spins freely. And here's the old shock. Let's just show how bad it is. So you can see I can push that down with my hand. You should not be able to do that. That easy, I should say. And then look at the rebound. Very slow. So let's get the new shock on. Alright, when comparing old shock to new shock, you can see this one sits up higher. You want to transfer any boots you have over to the shock, and then as you can see, this one I can't even push down. That one's super hard to push down. Look at this one. I'm able to push that one down. So the shock was blown. Let's get it all together now. Alright, so once you get the coil spring compressed down substantially, put the top hat back up, lining the ends of the coil springs back up with their notches and the top hat and the lower part respectively. This has a bearing in it, so I greased it. Yours may not. And you stick it right back on top. So it sits in there nicely. And we'll check and make sure if the grease is getting around, and it is. So we'll just leave that on there like that. There was a washer on mine, and then we'll put the nut back on there and you'll torque it down to whatever specs your factory specifications call for. Alright, after the top nut is installed, go ahead and release the tool, making sure that the spring stays lined up, and you're all done. And that's it. You just get it back in your car, and that's the safest way to get it off of your house. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.